So first, I just want to thank you for coming on to learn how the self-publishing process works and what most successful authors do and are doing. So today, we are going to talk about strategic mistakes to avoid, marketing mistakes to avoid, and writing and publish mistakes to avoid. These are mistakes that not only I myself have made, but mistakes that I've learned through working with other authors, through collaborations, through helping them to publish, and doing consultations with them. And if you stay to the end, you'll receive a free giveaway and a discount code. Oh. So for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Makini Smith, and I am a mindset coach, a 4-time published author, and also a podcast host. I published my first book back in 2014. I published A Walk in My Stilettos, How to Get Through the Struggle with Grace, and that opened more doors for me than I thought possible. And because of the response to that book, I was asked a lot of questions on how I was still able to stay positive after going through life's adversities. And that led me to publish my second book, which is 111 Affirmations to Help You Heal. And the third book, through continuing my gratitude practices, I decided to publish a prompted, templated gratitude journal. And the fourth book, last but not least, which is the couples version of the gratitude journal that you use with your partner. So I've made a lot of mistakes in the publishing process. And like I said earlier, I've learned a lot through collaborations with other authors, and as well as the authors that I've been helping publish behind the scenes with the ghostwriters that I've been working with. So I just wanted to share all those tips with you today to help the writing process go a little bit easier for you. So due to publishing my books, I have been able to be featured on many of the major media platforms in Canada, the US, and South Africa. And this year, I was able to have a billboard with my most recent book in Times Square. So I want you guys to keep in mind that becoming an author can open so many doors, and to keep an open mind, because your journey is going to be more than just about your book. You're going to be hired to be an expert on platforms and to speak on stages. So keep that in mind. When I decided to publish my first book, I was an introvert. I didn't have an audience. I was a single mother of 3. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just wanted to impact lives. And what I shared with the first publisher that I had signed a deal with was, I just want to be able to help at least one woman get through her adversities. And that was my original objective. And look at this, 4.5, almost 5 years later, I've spoken on so many stages internationally. I've done book signings in South Africa. I've had so many opportunities, and all I wanted to do was to impact one life. And that allowed me to walk into rooms I never thought I'd have the opportunity to be in. And today I'm going to share those tools with you. I'm going to share some expensive mistakes that first-time authors make when writing and publishing their book. I've seen these countless times when working with my clients, and I've made some myself. So we're going to start with some of the strategic mistakes to avoid. Number 1, not having a strategic business or life vision for your book. If you're not clear about this, you'll write a book that doesn't fulfill you, and why is that going off? And you're going to write a book that doesn't fulfill you and that doesn't give you the return on your investment that you're looking for, because you won't feel good about promoting it. So don't waste your time or energy on things that you're not passionate about. Instead, I want you to think about your next step in life. Think about the next step in your business. What book would you write from that place? you want to position yourself as an expert on that. So when I decided to share my story, I was selling real estate at the time. And when I told people that I was going to write a book, they thought I was writing a book on real estate. But I knew that that wasn't what was next for me in life. I knew that wasn't what I was passionate about. So my book was based on my story and how I was able to get through adversity, because I knew that I wanted to go into coaching and mentoring. Number 2 strategic mistake that people make is not being clear on your idea. If you're not clear about your idea, or how you're ever, if you're not clear about your idea, how are you ever going to write your book? Like, it'll never get written. I see this all the time. There's too many ideas, and then you start to feel flustered and frustrated without knowing where to start or what you're even going to write about. You can't make a plan because you don't know what you're making a plan for. Number 3 strategic mistake that people make is not focusing on your strengths. So there's 2 extremes here. First, being wide open to ideas and wanting to please everyone and writing about everything that you know. What ends up happening is that you lack focus because you're not clear. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's an approach that it's too rigid, it's too prescribed. You've been told that you have to follow this template, put in your material, and what ends up coming out is this very manufactured looking book at the other end. Either way, you're not writing that book from a place that serves you, and you can do better than that. You can write a book that's an expression of you. It doesn't have to take you a lot of time. It doesn't have to be a long book. Short's pretty good most times. But it does mean investing time into the planning part of the process, and it can take a couple of hours if you do it the right way. Number 4, in terms of strategic mistakes, is not creating the right structure. You've been told that the structure is important and that you need to have an outline. Great, but what does that look like? And do you have the right one for your book? I had a client that she told me that she had been getting up every morning at 6 a.m. and writing for 2 hours before she went into work. It was tough, but she was determined to get it and determined to finish. She had like thousands of words and felt like she wasn't even coming close to tackling this mountain of writing her book. And it felt like a never-ending process to her. And this is what happens when you write without structure. In one session, we mapped out her book, her marketing strategy, and we started her writing again. It was like a revelation for her that it could be super easy. You need your outline to make the writing easier for you. And you need it as a guide for your reader to go through your material so that he or she gets the right amount of information at the right time. Without this, you'll find the book's harder to not only to complete, but hard to read because it comes across disjointed and unconnected. You can lose out on like potential impact that you could be making instead of writing your book in a way that's fast, easy, and enjoyable to you. The first draft of my first book, I remember it was so disjointed that the editor came back and had such negative feedback. I went back to the drawing board and completely started writing all over again. You don't have to do that. That was just me being OCD. Number 5 strategic mistake that people make is not planning the writing time. You say that you're going to write when? I'll write when I go on vacation. I'll write when things get less hectic. I'll write when, sound familiar? Or maybe you went right for it and you've overdosed on writing and now you've lost interest. Writing a book is like training for a marathon. Too little and you won't be able to complete it. Too much and you risk an injury. It's the same thing with writing. Too little, the months drag on and it's very demotivating, and too much, you start to feel overwhelmed. And neither of those benefit the quality of your writing. So forget the as soon as sentences, put your butt in a chair and just start writing. Whether it's 1 hour a day or right before you go to bed, add it to your schedule. For me, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So I even schedule in my downtime in a day. Number 6, making random commitments with no plan. We all have a tendency to do that. We'll say things like, I'll run a marathon next April. Months come and go and your running shoes stayed in the closet. You pull it out the last minute. It's the same thing with your book. If you're gonna do it, and I really, really want you to, then set a date and make a plan to help get you there so that you're working in small steps. And if you need to, work with someone who can help you. Have an accountability partner. Once you've got that plan, you need to implement it. If I wanted to run a marathon, I need to run 4 or 5 times a week, rain or shine. If I wanted to lose weight, I need to eat less, move more. There are certain things that it'll make it easier for you. And having an accountability partner is one of those things. It's a major thing, actually. Number 7, focusing on the wrong metrics. What are you measuring? Are you measuring word count? Are you measuring book sales? I mean, both of these are very different, and I'll explain to you. So if you're measuring the wrong thing, you're going to get hyper-focused and distracted on your whole book process. So if someone who's writing to a word count and they say, I'm going to write 1,000 words this morning before breakfast, that becomes stressful. And that's not what I teach people that I coach. You're measuring output, not input. And what I found from working with other authors is that the book turns out to be as long as it needs to be. I remember when I was writing and working with the first publishing deal that I got, and I asked so many times, like, how many words do I need to write? How many words needs to be in each chapter? He gave me no direction. He just said, write. And I was so frustrated with him and felt like he wasn't helping mentor me through the writing process. I needed something to look at in terms of, how long does this chapter need to be, or how long does this book need to be? But when you're writing your first draft, you just need to write. You need to get everything out, and everything that needs to come out will come out, and it'll amount to the size of book that it's supposed to be. And we all have more than one book within us, so you don't have to have everything within one book. So, and if you're measuring book sales, of course, we want book sales, but is that really our end target? If you focus too much on book sales, you're going to look beyond the book and everything else that it can do for you. It can get you more and higher quality clients. It can get you speaking engagements. It can get you media appearances. This mistake could cost you a whole lot. So my intention is to make an impact with my books. I didn't focus on the amount of book sales or things like that. I often give away my books for promo, for my services. My mentor, Bob Proctor, he gives away his books as business cards. So like I showed you guys in the beginning, publishing books has allowed me to be on all these media platforms to expand my reach, to expand and get higher clientele. It's not just about the book. Number 8, not understanding what motivates you. I don't mean like the big why of what you're doing. I mean this specifically about your psychology. So there's a science of motivation that shows us there's 3 different models of what and we each have a preference for one of them. So our motivation could be direction, our motivation could be intensity, our motivation could be persistence. What is it that motivates you? So I recommend that you look into the science of motivation and see what motivates you to write. Why are you even doing this? Why do you want to do this? If you know your preference, you can set up systems that will support you. So again, you're not, taking someone else's model, you're adapting it for you. If you get this wrong, you're likely to not complete this task or even larger tasks. Working to your strengths doesn't just mean to write what you know, it means to understand the psychology of what drives you and what rewards you and your needs to get your book done. Now we're going to talk about the marketing mistakes to avoid. You have no platform. That's okay. No one starts with a platform. I certainly didn't. No one even knew my name before I published my first book, to be honest with you. So your book can help you build a platform, but that's only if you do it the right way. So what is a platform anyway? A platform is, it's what brought you together when you have a message that you share with an audience. Your message is the easy part. You just clarify that through the writing process, which we talked about earlier. And your audience is defined by how many people you can reach through your subscriber list, social media, and other networks. It's your platform that's going to lead you to book sales, and it's what's going to lead to more impact. Creating that change that you want, whether it's one person or many people. I know when I started telling my story, I got tired of telling my story one-to-one, and writing a book allowed me to share that one-to-many, but creating a platform of other women who needed to be inspired and needed to share their story and conquer their fears helped build the impact of this one book into the brand, A Walk in My Stilettos, that it is today. So whatever the size of the platform that you have now, there's key things that you can do while you're writing. Little by little, you can expand the number of people that you want to hear what you have to say and who you're willing to share it with. The key part of this is the size of your email list and how engaged those people are. So every small step that you take can help you when it comes to launching your book and taking that leap in your business. I didn't start with an email list. I just started nurturing what I had. And like this year, 2019, I just started nurturing. I was slowly growing an email list, but I didn't realize people were actually like signing up on my website. So I've just started nurturing that list. So it's still possible to do that without having a huge mailing list. Number 10, not planning for reviews. So I know it sounds like I'm jumping ahead right now, but reviews are important. Although they come after the book is out, it's an important part of the process. Like, what did you, the last time you were on Amazon, do? Did you leave a review? Did you look at the reviews? Or was it word of mouth that you purchased something? Which is the same thing, really. What people have to say about your work matters a lot. It's crucial to your ongoing sales. And if you don't plan for reviews, then you're leaving it up to chance for some random reader who happens to leave a review. And this could have a devastating impact if it's a negative one. And having an early bad review is likely to stay on the top of the list forever. So what you do in terms of setting up for reviews from now matters. You obviously can't tell people, what to say when you ask for reviews, but you can start preparing for them now. I always ask for reviews when someone sends me a message through social media, letting them, like when they message me to let me know what they think about my books or my profile or my podcast. I always say, I would love a review. That builds up the positive reviews on your platforms. Number 11, not having a launch plan. So a launch these days, it's not as important as they used to be when publishers had to make sure that, you know, your books were sold in stores. Otherwise, you know, the shop wouldn't stock your book. Your book is always in stock because we live in a digital age now. However, there are some things that you can do at launch time that you can't do at other times. So that's the best chance to get on a bestseller list, for example, because you can coordinate sales around the release of your the release date of your book. If you miss that, potentially you could miss out on, you know, all of the kudos that having that bestseller might bring. Some of the media appearances you can get, some clients, some of the speaking opportunities, not to mention actual book sales themselves. So depending on whether you're self-publishing or going the traditional publishing route, that'll determine what you can do to boost your sales at your launch time. And of course, how big your budget is matters and how wide your reach is with whatever platform you're growing. I recently helped publish a client that I received from a ghostwriter, and she's highly engaged with her followers on Instagram. And she started promoting the release of her book. I believe it was like maybe a week or two before the pre-sale date was announced. And as soon as it was available, within 9 hours, she hit bestseller on 2 separate lists on Amazon, not to mention how, you know, her post went viral to get her additional media attention. So launches are important. 12, no marketing plan for ongoing book sales. So books are hard to sell, especially in this day and age where people are busy. They don't necessarily plan for as much time to relax and read, but there are other versions for them to read your books, and there's audiobooks, and there's all kinds of other ways. So don't get discouraged. But to be honest, most authors sell less than a couple hundred over the lifetime of that book. I know. So a book may not make you rich if that's what you were thinking. You have to manage your expectations. I need you to, you know, think of the people who will buy the book. People will buy it, but not just because you wrote it. And maybe they will. Maybe you have a large platform. Maybe you've sold books before. That's great. But not everyone starts off in this position. So you need to think long term. How are people going to find out about you? This week, next week, 6 months from now? You can leverage your books for your business to grow and to position yourself as an expert, but you need a plan so that you can put it into action. Selling only a few hundred books, it seems like a very poor return on investment on your creativity, especially for the hours that you've put in. But if you've paid editors and designers and publicists, it's a lot that you've invested. And I was speaking with a female about a few months ago who worked really hard to get on the bestsellers list. She spent a lot of money on marketing. She spent a lot of money on marketing coaches. She invested more money just to have the title of bestseller than she made from her books. So when I spoke in the beginning about knowing what your focus is and what your objective is, some people are in it for the title and some people are in it for the impact. So, even though you've heard the advice that you should start to market the book before it's written, you should. All my clients are, focused on the same, and I don't want them to lose focus on their book, but it's important, your actions on how you prepare before your launch and months beyond. Selling books is a marathon, not a sprint. You have plenty of time after the book's out to market and sell, but do a decent launch and then have a year-long strategy that you can implement after the celebrations are over. 13, not creating anticipation. So you need to keep people in touch with your process as you go through it. It's very enticing to, hide away behind your keyboard and your coffee until your book's done, but that can be a big mistake and detrimental to growing the awareness of your book. So you'll want to keep your community involved in the process because they'll be more than likely to buy and promote your book when it comes out. Anticipation is the key word here. Even if your platform is still small, there are people that are around you who are interested and will be interested in your book. There's Facebook groups, there's all the different social media platforms, whatever email list that you have. You want to keep people updated on the fact that you're writing a book. You want to share your journey with them. If you add up, the hundreds from the different platforms from social media and your mailing list, you probably have thousands. So work with those people, engage with them to build your platform, and strategically release nuggets of information about your content and your process so that people are ready to buy as soon as it's ready to be published. I mean, I may have written my first book about my story, but I didn't make it successful by myself. I didn't make it a success by myself. I was sharing my journey on social media, and people were involved in my process and watched how I evolved and the hurdles that I had overcome, and even some of the frustrations and errors that happened along the way. And that got them involved in my journey. And that's why I had people reaching out from other countries. Like, I always mention Australia because that one is deep in my heart, but from other countries that support the book, that have bought it, that left reviews, and that share it with other people. Number 14, boosting someone else's platform and not your own. This is a big one for me. I mean, it's very attractive to be a part of someone else's book, an anthology or a collaboration project. You get to be a published author without the stress of publishing, and there's less to write. Yes, it's a good way to dip your toe in the water, but a successful anthology is very hard to pull off in a way that benefits all the contributing authors. What really happens is one of two things. The book flops because it's not coherent and no one's willing to promote it because they didn't own the content, or it's a success and the person who gets most of the benefit is the compiler, the person who pulled it together. It's their name on Amazon, it's their business that's being promoted. If you enter into this kind of a project, think very carefully about the investment of time that you're putting in and what return you might get. And don't believe all of the promises that 12 authors means 12 times the promotion, because it's not. I've seen some collaborations highly, I don't want to use the word highly, very poorly promoted on social media. And that made people not want to read the book because there were so many authors trying to throw this book down people's throats. So these kinds of collaborations, they can work when they're done in a particular way, but 90% of the time, you're better off putting that effort into your own book. My recommendation is, if you're going to be a part of a book compilation, you want it to be, I don't know, if Michelle Obama wants you to be in her book project as a new author, then do it. Otherwise, I don't recommend it. Co-authoring after you've put out your own book is fine, but as your first book, I would strongly advise putting that energy and effort and marketing and support into your own project. And once you've had your book out and you want to be a part of a compilation, that's fine. But if you're going to put the effort into publishing a book, your first book, I do not advise being a part of a compilation. So I'm going to talk about writing and publishing mistakes to avoid. Not understanding your reader. I do consultations, and this is very often like a breakthrough exercise for people. You write because you have something to say, or you want to promote your business. Maybe someone's told you it's a good idea, or you've seen other people publishing books and you're seeing like all the excitement and kudos and expert positioning that they're getting. You want it for yourself, of course. There's nothing wrong with that. We all want that. But a book is a conversation with someone who wants to read it. It's not a place for you to talk about your ideas or your story in isolation. You can write that kind of book if you want to, but expect to be disappointed if it doesn't do well or as you've hoped. People are more interested in themselves, not surprising, than they are in us. And you have to know who you're writing to. And I don't mean this simply like in a marketing context. It's not all about the sales. It's also about the writing. What kind of voice do you want to use? What level of depth do you need to go into in your explanations? What verbiage is acceptable and will be understood? For a whole host of reasons, you really don't want to make this mistake. I was speaking to women that are in a position that I was in when I wrote my book. It was like having a conversation with them. So a lot of the feedback that I've gotten is, it feels like you were telling my story, or I loved, your transparency. I knew that I was writing my book for, young moms. I knew I was writing my book for single moms. I wasn't writing my book for corporate setting. So I know that if I were to promote my book in those settings, I wouldn't do well. Number 16, not knowing the most important questions. So when I say this, I mean the burning questions that your reader wants answered. It's not enough to know who you're writing to. You need to know what he or she wants. Your book is a conversation with the reader. And if you have no idea what your reader wants to know or needs to know, then you're kind of writing a book that has no purpose to them. What are their pain points? What are the suggestions that you have as a solution? Your book is a vehicle for communication, and communication is a two-way street. I'm not suggesting, you write a book just because you spot an opportunity, but there are people in your writing relationship. It's you and the reader. Number 17, making the writing hard. Maybe you know what I'm talking about here. So some days it just feels like a struggle and you're not happy. You can't get the words out. You hate what you've written. You don't know where it's going. You can write nothing on some days and too much on others. And, whether it's on topic is sometimes the question. So this mistake can cost you, because every hour that you're writing or not writing is an hour that could have been spent doing something else. For me, that could be being with my kids or being with my partner or, going for a walk. I enjoy that quality time with people around me. If that's you, it could just be about your technique. It could be about your structure. If you don't have structure, you'll find that writing becomes difficult because you're unfocused. Whatever it is that you're doing that's not making it joyful for you or easy, it's probably because of your structure. Or it could be your choice of book. Are you inspired? Are you really inspired? Are you passionate or even highly knowledgeable about the subject that you're trying to write about? I want you to do something that excites you. Even if it, seems like for now it's an easy book, it's still worthwhile writing it, even if you don't publish it right away. If you're at this stage, we can easily book a 15-minute complimentary call, or I also do 1-hour consultations. We can talk later, but I do have strategies that'll help you. Number 18, making the wrong publishing choice. Ooh. Maybe, you're waiting for a traditional publisher. Maybe you're considering the self-published route. I've tried both. I went through a publisher the very first time, and it didn't work out in my favor. I'll share more about that later. And I went through a smaller self-publishing company the second try, and that also didn't work out. And that's why I learned the self-publishing process and realized how many people were either being taken advantage of, or because they feel that it's difficult, they go with an easy choice. And sometimes that easy choice is not only expensive, but it's something that you are probably paying thousands of dollars for that cost less than a couple $100s to do. So I don't believe that there's a single right way to publish. And I work with clients to identify what's the best route for them. It all comes back to your objectives. What do you want from the book? I have a client who's also a coach. She's a business coach, and her objective is clients. She's very, very clear about that. She self-published a small book, and she took her book to like networking events and meetings, and she did a lot of places where she sold her books at booths and stuff like that. And some of the people called her for coaching because they loved her method and they wanted to get to know her personally. She filled up her client list fast, and now she runs retreats and coaching groups. She's probably sold fewer than 100 books on Amazon, but that book has brought her tens and thousands of coaching income. If you're holding out for a traditional publishing contract, know that it is rare for them to take on new authors who don't already have a big platform, or if they don't feel that they can sell 2,000 copies of your book. I actually have a video on my YouTube that would help you guys, where I spoke on a panel in Washington, and there was a marketing rep from a large publishing company. There was myself, who was self-published, and there's another self-published author who was on the panel, and we shared different angles that you can take and the difference in the two experiences. So feel free to head over there and you can watch on the publishing process. But back to publishers, if they don't feel that they can market you to sell their 2,000 books, or you don't have an agent, it can be difficult. My first publishing deal, I didn't realize the fine print. I was paying for 2,000 copies of my own book. I had no desire to do that. I eventually ended up breaching my contract before completing the book because I wanted to go about it the right way. I wanted to make an impact. I wasn't looking for the title, and I knew that their tactic wasn't right for me. It didn't sit right with me. So there's, how do I say this? Usually some of these bestseller lists outside of Amazon, if you've sold 2,000 copies, it puts you on their best-selling list. Amazon, I'll be totally honest with you guys, I was actually upset when I first found this out. You can be a bestseller on Amazon even by selling 14 books in one day. And I can share more about that with you guys if you're interested later. And if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat and I'll get to them at the end. But back to self-publishing. Self-publishing is flexible and it gives you the control over your marketing. You just need to be mindful of where you spend your money. Some big publishing companies will promise you miracles. And then there's self-publishing companies that will promise you miracles that they can't deliver on. There's simple phrases that you'll hear in the industry if you're doing your due diligence and looking into publishing and self-publishing, where they'll use phrases like the potential of exposure to 400,000 bookstores worldwide. And that really just means that they're adding you to a catalog. So there's no guarantee of anything. So just be mindful of that. The real value for you is in the strategy around your book and the quality of your work. Paying an expensive self-publisher company to, make your book look nice. It's like buying an expensive plate and serving a steak dinner to a vegetarian. No one cares about the plates until you get the meal right. I mentioned earlier, I paid, almost $5,000 to the second self-publisher that I worked with. And I realized that the things that I was being offered, I figured out how to do myself, and it cost me roughly $50. So imagine. 19, not getting a professional editor. So an author who skimps on an editor is usually trying to save money. I get it. It feels like a luxury and it's not essential. Maybe you have a friend or family member who's offered to edit your book for you. But this is a very important step that you do not want to miss. I can almost guarantee that you'll not be happy later on if you publish your book like this. When my first book was released, the editing errors that I discovered afterwards made me cringe. Like, I got messages and screenshots from people, and I had already sold hundreds of books. My name is on that. Like, that's my reputation. I had sold 100 copies for my book launch alone. And having that many books out there, it made me wanted to like crawl into a hole and disappear. I had to not only have my book re-edited professionally, but that's when I decided to learn the self-publishing process so I could republish it and save myself a lot of the headache that I had gone through. And that's what I'm trying to save you guys from today. So a good editor can work with you on your structure, the depth, the organization of your content. This is like, it's more than just spotting your spelling mistakes and your commas in the wrong place. Maybe you've worked with a mentor or coach along the way that's helping you with your writing now. That's great. However, if you need developmental editing, you're going to need a professional to help you and to work on that. And if you need that, I can refer you to people within my network, but it's in your best interest for your work and for your name. 20, skimping on proofreading. It's a relatable mistake. And it'll get you some unnecessary poor reviews on Amazon, to say the least. I know people should comment on the quality of the content and not your occasional typo, but they won't. There's always someone who will criticize you for that mistake. I remember seeing, I believe it was this year, because my reviews on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com are two separate. I don't know why they can't just be all the same. But I found a review with someone talking about the typos. And this was a person who said that they had purchased the book before and never got a chance to read it until now. So I believe they probably had one of the original copies of the book that was filled with editing errors. And now I have to live with that review on Amazon. You do not want that in your life. So please don't ask your partner or your neighbor to do this for you unless they really know what they're doing. It's not an expensive part of the process. It's essential. It's risking your reputation and the loss of book sales. I recently had a client who I'm helping publish her book, and she discovered all kinds of errors when she got her draft copy in the mail from the distributor. So after her manuscript had already been formatted through a graphic designer and uploaded to the distributor to be out to all of these international platforms, I always make my clients order a draft copy so they can feel the book in their hand and go through and flip the pages. And at that point, that's where she found proofreading errors because she skimped on some of the steps. So I do not want you guys to have to deal with that. She had to go back to the editor, have her manuscript edited, and then have it reformatted again. And we now have to resubmit it to the distributor and wait for their approval. So her process that could have taken, I don't know, 2-3 weeks is now possibly going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And she was supposed to have her book launch at the end of the month. So I'm praying that we get everything sorted out ASAP. Number 21, being too hard on yourself. Your work is not terrible. People do want to read it. So whatever way that you're being hard on yourself, I want you to stop. The joy of the writing is in the process as much as it is in the outcome. For me, it was therapeutic. I may have saved thousands of dollars on therapy, and that is not a joke. The writing process and sharing my story, it allowed me to release all of the emotions that I was suppressing and holding on to inside that could have made me bitter. And being able to write my story and speak from a positive perspective to share the lessons that I learned, it's given me so much joy and gratification. So I want you guys to understand, don't be hard on yourself when you're writing. Just write. This might be the first time that you've attempted to write a book, so just be gentle on yourself. What was it like the first time you tried something new? When you started, I don't know, your business, or when you learned a new skill, did you need to get help? Were you patient with yourself about the progress? You may have to write a draft copy multiple times. It's not going to be, you're going to write this book in one shot and it's going to be done. When I wrote my first draft, the feedback from the editor literally made me cry. And I think I put it down and said, I don't know if I'm meant to write a book. It's a draft copy. It's not going to be perfect. Thank God I came to my senses and I picked it back up and I started writing again. But I need you guys to be gentle on yourself. Writing is about growing as a person as much as it is about growing your business. And I want you to do it in a way that gives you that personal growth. It helps you to evolve, that whole personal development. It stretches you. Please be kind to yourself. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to check the chat. Let me know. If you've got any questions, feel free and I will answer them. Are you ready to share your story? Are you ready to conquer that fear of becoming an internationally published author? Here's what my services include. So I'm not promising or labeling or titling myself as a publisher of any kind, although I am registered with the government as a publisher. I coach you through the publishing process because I have done this so many times and it is super easy and we can have you as an international published author within the next 30 days. This is what I am offering to you in my publishing package. You'll have global distribution. So that's 39,000 bookstores, online retailers, libraries, and schools. So my books are available online they're on Walmart.com. They're on Chapters, Indigo, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, iBooks, all of those online bookstores, you name it, it is there. I walk you through the process. It's custom one-on-one support. So we do Zoom chats and share screens, and I make sure through the back office, getting your book uploaded through to the distributor to make sure that you do it right and you don't have any hiccups, because I remember the first time I tried the self-publishing process and it took me months to figure out, months of frustration and a ton of researching online and contacting other authors to try and get it right. And I'm trying to save you all of that headache and we can have it all done, everything within 30 days. I help you with your ISBN assignment. So that's like the barcode on the back of your book. So it can be scanned and sold in all of these platforms. If you were looking to do paperback format, and I also help you on the back end. If you want to publish in ebook or hardcover, it's also available, but that's additional. If you have your ebook already formatted, we can do that as well. the whole distributor setup, and it's print on demand. So when I mentioned earlier about, my previous publisher wanting me to stock 2,000 copies of my own book in my basement, today I do not hold any extra copies of my book. It is print on demand and fulfillment. Someone orders online and I get the funds directed into my account. I do not have to go to the post office and ship a book. I do not have to worry about fulfilling any orders. I am not trying to live that life. I am a mother of 3. No thanks. So you guys can have that easy life too. You can make money in your sleep. You can run ads and promote your books online and have them sell, and the money just comes into your account. And the greatest thing of all is you get to keep 100% of your royalties and your copyright. So the first publishing deal that I got with that publisher, they wanted a 60-40 split. So not only did I pay $12,000 for them to publish my book, but they also were taking 60% of my royalties. I did all the work. I don't understand. The second publisher that I worked with, I paid them $5,000 and it was a 50-50 split. So they were still taking 50% of my profit. I am showing you guys how you can keep 100% of your royalties. I actually received a message from someone yesterday and I told her I am going to screenshot this and I'm going to put this into my webinar because this is a perfect example of people paying ridiculous amounts of money because they don't know any better or they don't have someone to walk them through the process. So she was approached by a publisher, and I've blanked out their names here for obvious purposes, but the publisher wanted her to be a part of their compilation, a part of their anthology, to share her story. And in order for her to be a part of this, to write a chapter for the basic package was almost $4,000 to be an author in somebody else's book. And the all-inclusive package, they were charging, I think it's like $9,000. So there are lots of companies out here. I had people that send me messages all the time saying, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I helped a major influencer with over 1 million followers on Instagram save herself from potentially a serious legal case because there was a publisher willing to publish her book for free, but wanted 50% of her royalties. And the small print basically said that she was signed to them for all future books, and it was a hot mess. And for a nominal, like minimal fee, I helped her through the back end to self-publish her book, and she's actually the client that became a bestseller in 9 hours of pre-order. So I'm just using this as an example of what people are out here charging. Like I said, my first publisher charged me $12,000. I am not going to charge you guys $12,000. My second publisher charged me $5,000. I am not going to charge you $5,000. Half of that, maybe? No, not even. Oh, there we go. My coaching package to walk you through the entire process, it's basically $1,000 US, which converts to roughly 1,300 Canadian, which is very little. So again, this is what you get with it. The international distribution, print on demand, my custom one-on-one support, your ISBN, paperback, hardcover, and ebook formats available. And because you stayed to the end, there's a discount on services. So for the first 10 people to use the code, you get 25% off my already minimal cost to help you through the self-publishing process. And that is until the end of August. So you can either write this down or screenshot this code, but it's webinar 1. So if you go to my website, awalkinmystilettos.com, and in the shop tab, go down to publish my book, or if you're on my Instagram, click the link in my bio, and there's a tab for publish my book. And on checkout, you can put in webinar 1 as your discount code for 25% off my publishing coaching fee. And for those of you who are included in using that discount code, I am also throwing in a free session on how to use your book to create multiple streams of income, which is what I've been able to do. And I'll also include a session on how to visually build a brand like a pro. I have all of my brand, which is in sync, if you've noticed, from my slides to my brand colors to pretty much everything. And I will help you set up all of your stuff on the back end. I see we have some questions. Let me see. Okay, so how much should we be prepared to spend from start to finish? Okay, so let's see, I'll give you some roundabout ideas. So if, in terms of editing, a lot of editors charge per word, and fees can be extremely different. So I usually, depending on the type of book that you have, I will give you a list of editors and refer you to them. I have some editors that charge just in the hundreds, which is more reasonable. And there are editors that charge within the thousands. Again, it depends on the type of book that you do have. In terms of getting a book cover design, you are looking at anywhere between $50 to a couple $100, depending on the complexity of your design. There are people that I've gotten covers designed for less than $50. And if you're on my social media, especially my Facebook, I did a post last week because I had referred my client to a couple of graphic designers to get her cover done. And when she did her research, she decided not to go with them, but she went with someone that she knew, and it didn't work out well. His cover didn't come out very professional, and we were already in the uploading process. So I put up a post for her on Facebook, and there was about 75 responses with different people to create a cover for her. So she found one and had, had her book cover done within 24 to 48 hours. I believe I will double check with her so I can get back to you on that answer, but I don't think she paid more than $100. And in terms of some of the back end fees, if you are looking to convert your paperback book to an ebook, it's 60 cents a page. And I believe there's another fee, which is $50. And that would be it for the cost that I can think of offhand. The other question, is there an audiobook formatting upgrade option? Okay, so the distributor that I work with, which is a well-known international distributor, currently they have paperback, hardcover, and ebook. I checked within the last 48 hours and they do not have the audiobook format. It doesn't mean that you cannot have an audiobook created for your book. I'm actually working on audiobook for my first book. And each format of your book requires a different ISBN. So that's part of the process that I help you with. Is there any more questions? If you can think of questions later that you have, feel free to send me an email at info@awakamistilettos.com. I will be happy to answer those questions for you. And we can also schedule a complimentary 15-minute call. I do those as well. And when you're ready, there is the option to sign up for the coaching package. And I also do 1-hour consultations, but I am here. Honestly, I've seen a lot in this industry. I've experienced a lot, and I just want to save you guys from having to deal with a lot of those headaches. You can definitely share your story, share your message, and build a beautiful, inspiring platform, and it doesn't have to cost you $1 million. Thank you guys for your time. Oh, wait, one more question. Oh, you're welcome. That wasn't a question. So thank you. Jem said, thanks, Makini. No problem. You guys stay connected with me. Add me on Instagram at The Real Makini Smith. I'm on Facebook. Look me up, Makini Smith, and on Twitter, Makini Smith. I'm happy to answer all your questions. And the easiest place to find me would be Instagram because I love to play on the gram. Bye, guys.